Like and subscribe right now, or you're gonna have terrible luck for the next week. Megalodon and Livyatan are two of the largest and most terrifying predators to ever swim in the Earth's prehistoric oceans. The Meg is reckoned to be the largest shark this planet has ever seen. The prehistoric monster shark was 3 times bigger and 10 times badder than a great white shark. Its name translates to giant tooth, and boy, this massive shark wielded the strongest bite force of any known animal on the planet. Leviathan, on the other hand, was an enormous raptorial prehistoric whale almost as big as the Megalodon. Named after the biblical monster called Leviathan, you can bet this was a behemoth-sized whale that had its own strengths going for it. Now, these incredible beasties have long gone extinct, but wouldn't it be interesting to imagine them squaring off in an epic battle? Interestingly, these fearsome monstrous sea predators existed around the same time, some 20 to 12 million years ago. They shared the same ocean and were likely well acquainted with each other. Heck, they even competed for the same food and territory. So it would not be unimaginable that Megalodon and Livyatan once found themselves snout to snout somewhere in the rough, deep waters. Picture this, a voracious Megalodon on one corner and an equally ravenous Livyatan in the far corner. The battle that would ensue will undoubtedly be one for the ages, and quite frankly, it's the kind of fight I wouldn't want to miss for the world. These are both formidable contenders, and I think it would be fair to assume that whichever of them got the first serious bite in would have won, but do you think any of these qualified giants would have yielded? Stay tuned for the full analysis of the epic fight between the feared Megalodon and the mighty Leviathan. So this great battle must have taken place somewhere, yeah? While both these enormous sea creatures ruled the prehistoric seas and probably swam in every deep ocean, fossilized fragments belonging to Leviathan were mostly discovered in Peru. This leads us to believe that the monster-toothed whale frequently plied the coasts of South America, more than it ventured into the other seas of the ancient world. Fossilized remains of Megalodon have been discovered all over the world. As such, it won't be wrong to think that the territories of these two behemoths overlapped, even if briefly, and either one or the other inevitably strayed into enemy territory, whether accidentally or on purpose. Let's therefore imagine that the ancient oceanic battlefield was somewhere around the waters of the South American coast. It is a more likely battlefield given its abundance of huge whales, massive sharks, giant sea turtles, dolphins, porpoises, and pinnipeds, all of which the two imposing predators preyed upon. And although their primary food consisted of these huge marine mammals, it is likely that the juveniles of both the Megalodon and Livyatan, ill-equipped to defend themselves, once or twice fell prey to the other. Well, we've already mentioned that these ancient predators were really, really big. But do you know exactly how big? And how do they stack up against each other in terms of their proportions? When the gigantic shark was first discovered, scientists reckoned it must have been about 80 to 100 feet long. Whoa! These guys really pictured a ginormous, giant-sized shark. But the metrics didn't sound realistic. In recent times, however, more believable numbers were released, estimating the Meg at slightly over 60 feet. Still, this made the giant shark about as long as a 10-pin bowling lane. That's really long, any way you slice it. Side to side, Leviathan measured nearly as long as Megalodon. It may have been slightly shorter in length, and contrary to what is the case when you juxtaposition present-day whales and sharks, Leviathan may have been lighter than Megalodon. Typically, whales are larger than the sharks that are similar in length to them. The Meg, however, takes the gold in the weight contest, measuring upwards of 60,000 kilos compared to Leviathan's 50,000. Notwithstanding the immense weights of both these massive prehistoric sea monsters, they were quite agile and fast swimmers. This element must have proven to be instrumental in a face-off between these titans. I imagine that if Leviathan was anything like present-day whales, it must have been an agile swimmer as well. However, modern whales would be comparatively slower because they had to conserve much of their energy for hunting farther in the deep waters. Leviathan must have been more agile since it hunted closer to the surface, where trips to replenish its lungs with fresh air would be shorter, hence it had more energy for diving and hunting. Admittedly though, sharks are faster and more agile swimmers than whales. Blue whales can reach speeds of 30 miles an hour over short bursts, but 11 miles an hour is a more typical traveling speed. Sperm whales cruise at 15 miles an hour. The great white shark, on the other hand, is reckoned to have a top swimming speed of 25 miles an hour, perhaps with short bursts of 35 miles an hour. the fastest sharks today travel at 60 miles an hour. That's 20 times faster than the typical swimming speed for us humans. The Megalodon was not necessarily a faster predator compared to present-day sharks. Still, we can safely rank it up there with the best swimmers of its time. So, Megalodon takes this one as well. Speed was vital in ambush situations. It was critical both for predators attacking and prey escaping to safety to be fast. But equally important, and perhaps even more so, on the part of the predator, was having a good strategy. So, when you think of intelligence as being the most fundamental aspect of any strategy, everything then boils down to the mental acuity of the attacker or victim. Alright, before I lose you any further, let me just put it out there that Leviathan, being a mammal, presumably possessed a bigger brain. It was believed to be more intelligent than any huge fish in its habitat. In our case, that's the Megalodon. Hence, a tussle between these two giants was really a case of brains versus brawn, assuming that the Meg was the strongest here, given its relatively larger size. Well, some will argue that good ideas are only half the battle. Still, it would be utterly unfair if Leviathan doesn't take this one home on account of its superior mental acuity, compared to the Meg, of course. Close to the waves, the stealthy Megalodon would have found the massive whale to be easy prey, but being a smarter and more strategic opponent, Leviathan would have been quicker to react and counter the attack, and being able to make micro-adjustments to its strategy, Leviathan would likely tire and eventually overpower the Meg, which, by the way, came with one grand plan that quickly falls apart. I dare say that intelligence rules in the fin-to-fin combat between the two gigantic monsters of the prehistoric waters. At this point, the two have crossed swords, and close quarters combat is inevitable. As such, the time has come for the ancient predators to leverage their armory. The ambushing Megalodon was always quick to draw its intimidatingly massive 7-inch teeth that could pierce through even the fish with the toughest and most rigid scales. To go with its row upon row of massive razor-sharp serrated teeth were powerful jaw muscles that produced the strongest bite force of any animal ever known. It is said that Megalodon's bite force was much more potent than that of the feared T-Rex and other carnivorous dinosaurs. By some calculations, Megalodon wielded a bite force estimated somewhere between 11 and 18 tons of force per square inch. And did I mention the shark's prowess at executing well-timed attacks? It was an expert at briskly and ravenously shearing off its prey's rigid, cartilaginous fins, then zooming in for the kill once its adversary had been rendered immobile in the water. It goes without saying, therefore, that the very first attack from Megalodon could cause fatal injuries to its unlucky victim. And when the agile Meg quickly follows the initial assault with a barrage of subsequent attacks within that frozen second, its badly bruised victims barely have a fighting chance. Be that as it may, such a quick-fire ambush on the Leviathan, while significantly disorienting, would do little harms in terms of drawing serious blood from the massive whale. Like sperm whales, Leviathan was believed to have the thickest skin of any cetacean. Its layers of skin and fat likely reduce the impact of Megalodon's piercing teeth. Actually, at 10 to 12 inches thick, Leviathan's skin was thicker than Megalodon's teeth were long. Now that we've put that to rest, and knowing how mortal danger brings clarity, the angered Leviathan would now be looking for a chance to deal a blow of its own against the unabating ancient shark. The small incisions caused by Meg's initial attacks are quite excruciating, but alert, Leviathan now anticipates every one of Megalodon's moves. It absorbs the trauma and takes the first window to hurriedly make for the surface. But when Megalodon follows behind, determined to cause serious harm now and clearly acting entirely on instinct, Leviathan executes his first counterattack in the way of a drastic head battering to the pursuing shark's gill slits. The pounding catches Megalodon completely off guard, and before the disoriented shark can come up with a defense or flight strategy, Leviathan manages another clobbering that then brings its broken opponent into submission. It's a tense situation, and the outcome now depends on whether Megalodon can come up with a plan B that would level the playing field, as it were.
Now it's time for today's best pick.
This image was sent to us by a subscriber just like you. It's a fight poster like no other, and while the unusual contenders are now long extinct, you can't deny that it would have been a thrilling experience witnessing the feared Megalodon and mighty Leviathan going fin to fin. Speaking of fins, the only way our bruised Megalodon can subdue the infuriated Leviathan is by timing a bite that would shear its adversary's fins. But right from the outset of the battle, Leviathan has been keenly studying Megalodon's every move, and despite the shark's best efforts at hiding its intentions of chopping off the inbound whale's bruised fin, its gaped mouth full of razor-sharp teeth give the shark away. Leviathan approaches fast, but all the more intent on ending the fight with one last swift attack. The shark's teeth do little to deter the angered whale, because as dangerous as Megalodon's teeth are, Leviathan is well aware that they are no match to its own foot-long chompers. With its mouth agape and accelerating like a loaded freight train, the whale collides into Megalodon and sinks in its massive teeth squarely across the shark's gill and pectoral fin section. With this death blow, the massive shark is pretty much a goner, and Leviathan definitely wins. Alas, this is only one of many possibilities, and likely none of the scenarios you read about in your favorite blogs ever happened. Still, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep imagining how the greatest battle between the most extraordinary sea creatures in history would have played out. Most people are fond of the ancient shark, and the scenarios often allow Megalodon to survive when it would have been outrightly dismembered by Leviathan. Firstly, toothed whales seldom hunt alone, so there's a chance that even a raptorial whale like the Leviathan would have had a pod of other massive whales around, making the likelihood of a one-on-one battle improbable. Secondly, sharks are solitary creatures. The Megalodon likely hunted alone, and the solo shark, however big, would have been no match for an entire pod of equally large whales. What's more, sharks are very cautious creatures, and even a monster-sized one like the Megalodon would not fight anything that could cause serious injury to it. The verdict, therefore, stands that in the event of a head-to-head fight between Megalodon and Leviathan, though it be a far-fetched scenario, there would have been a 50-50 chance of winning. But if Leviathan lived in pods and such a battle ever took place, the whales had an advantage. A 70-30 chance they knocked Megalodon out. 30% says Meg will turn away and make a run for it. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed, be sure to smash the like icon and leave a comment. Your engagement is what keeps our curiosity going. We have lots of fantastic videos that you will enjoy. You can start by checking out the 2 already showing up on your screen right now. Keep it 100.